Welcome to Yin Yoga with Nita. My name is Mariana, but everyone calls me Nita. And today we're going to be doing Yin Yoga flow for the whole body. We're going to be focusing on a lot on the hips, on the legs, and on the spine. And there's also going to be some dragon fire in there, but it will be very gentle. Of course, always asking you to listen to your body and to find that edge of sensation that feels good, but it's not painful. For today's flow, we're gonna need, if you have available, a couple blocks or books you can stack. It will also be helpful if you have a bolster or a blanket you can roll like a bolster, or any cushions or pillows like this that you have laying around, okay? Um, Other than that, anything that makes you feel cozy, and remember you have the music in the box below. All right, so let's begin by finding a comfortable seat, whether that's cross-legged or if you want to be like me with a pillow or a bolster in between your legs and sitting on your heels. Um, and find alignment in your spine, okay? So imagine a thread that goes from the pelvis to the heart and out through the crown of your head. So spine is tall and long. Roll your shoulders down and back a few times to make sure you're not hunching and you're finding that alignment. You can also give yourself a couple of neck circles very slowly, one way, and then the other way. Starting to notice what's happening in the body here. And make any adjustments, any clothing adjustments you need, anything you need before finding stillness here, okay? Palms of the hand can be facing down or up. And you can soften your gaze, find your drishti, your point of focus, or close your eyes if that feels safe. Take a deep breath here. And start to arrive to this space, to this moment. Continuing to focus on the breath. And just noticing without trying to control it, just notice the breath, how it is right now. Notice if it feels deep, shallow, or maybe somewhere in between. Notice if the breath has any temperature to it. Maybe it's a little warm. Or a little cooler. Maybe it changes temperatures. Maybe it's a little cold outside, so it comes in a little cold. And it warms up in your body. And start noticing where you're breathing. So maybe you notice your breath in your belly as it fills up like a balloon. Or maybe you notice it in your chest as it rises up and comes down. And then bring your awareness to your body and any sensations that may arise right now. Any tugs and pulls, any tension, any tender spots, any gentleness maybe, any softness. without judging it, without trying to do anything about it right now. You're already here on your mat. You're already practicing. And the mind might get very distracted while we're trying to focus. It might jump from one thing to the next, from yesterday to tomorrow, and that's okay. That's the mind. What we do with the practice is try to find focus, try to find stillness with the breath, with movement. To redirect the mind, to get some clarity, to wipe the lens a little bit. And as you're here, many stories might come up. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. Some of the stories we tell ourselves during the day, even when we practice. Just some thoughts that may come that may not be true. They feel real, but they may not be facts, right? So just notice that. Notice if you're telling yourself a story right now, or if you've been telling yourself a story that may just be a false perception, a false notion of yourself, of the world, of someone else, of your relationships. Continue to breathe. And as you practice today, you can start asking yourself if this story is true. Is it real, or is it something you have told yourself, or maybe other people have told yourself? And now you believe it to be true. Some of the stories I tell myself: I am not enough. I don't belong. I need to do it all. And through the practice, I find myself reflecting and realizing that some of those are not real. And I'm trying to unlearn those. I'm trying to untell those stories and wipe the lens. Every practice, every move, every posture, every breath is an opportunity to wipe that lens, to get more clarity in the mind and find more stillness, find more ease. Take a few more deep breaths here, inhaling deeply through your nose. Exhale through your mouth, let it all go. One more through your nose. Let it all go. Beautiful. Very slowly, if your eyes were closed, start batting your eyelashes and opening them up, coming back to this space. And let's find our first posture. It's going to be butterfly. So for butterfly, it's very important to find your sit bones. So you might just move the fleshy bits of your bum away to try to ground those sit bones on your mat, or you can grab a cushion, a pillow, or something to give you some height. and to allow you to drop your pelvis. Bring the soles of your feet together. And the legs can be close to you or farther apart. It's up to you. Knees can be hanging, or you can put some blocks for support. Always check in with your knees. Make sure they feel good. They feel supported here. And you can find alignment with your spine, and this is a beautiful place to stay. Or if it feels appropriate, you can start coming towards your feet, rounding your spine and finding either blocks or the ground or your feet, whatever's there to support you. I'm actually I like placing my bolster sometimes on top of my feet and just hanging my forearms. And then your head, again, it can hang if that feels good for your neck. Or you can always use your hands to support it as well. Or you can just come all the way down, right? Sometimes finding pillows or a block. So find, again, that place of support where you're still feeling sensation, right? We're not totally in a restorative position here. We're trying to find sensation either on your groin, back of legs, glutes, even the spine, the back, right? Depending on your body. But we're trying to find some sensation that is not painful. And we're going to hang out for a few minutes here, okay? And the point of hanging out here is, as you know, if you've been doing yin or if you haven't, we're trying to passively find stillness in these postures so we can target the deep connective tissue, right? Those tendons, those ligaments, joints, bones, even the fascia, to try to liquefy that gelatin that's all around it that connects us and to try to let energy flow, okay? Sometimes we have things stuck in different places in our bodies. Sometimes energy just feels icky and stuck. So the goal is to move these things through stillness, right? Remember your breath. It's with you. It's with you throughout the whole practice. And you don't have to do anything to change it. You just breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Breath is just such a beautiful tool to find focus, to find ease. And if the breath is sometimes you don't feel like it's not enough, quote unquote, to find that concentration, that focus, you can also find a mantra for you. So personally, I like I am or I am here. And I try to connect it with the breath. So you can inhale thinking I, and then exhale am. Or inhale I am and exhale here. And just repeat that, in the back of your mind as you're breathing, and it helps you find that stillness. Especially if the mind feels very chattery, like very, very noisy. A few more breaths here in butterfly. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, now, very slowly, in the next breath, if you were rounding your spine, start coming back up. And if you had props like me, carefully just put them towards the side or outside of your mat. If you have a cushion, then you can also move it. I'm gonna take this off because we're gonna be moving a little bit, so I don't want to fall. Make sure that if you don't have any sweaters or anything like that, you do the same. And come to hands and knees or tabletop. And find any intuitive movement here, right? So maybe you just move your hips from side to side. Maybe you move the hip and then look towards the back. That feels nice. Or maybe you find some cat cows, right? So inhaling, dropping the belly button, lifting the tailbone and the crown. This is cow. Exhaling, belly button to spine, dropping the crown of the head. And then you can alternate from cow to cat as you wish. Just giving some movement to the spine as we transition from pose to pose. You can even do some undulations with it, some rolls, you choose. And once that feels complete, you're going to tuck your toes, okay? And then you're going to plant your hands and get ready to come up to downward facing dog, lifting your hips up towards the sky. You can keep a sweet bend on the knees since this is maybe your first downward dog of the day. So be gentle, and that can help you also kind of get those hips up and back, melting your chest towards the ground. And this is just a transition, so we're not going to be here for a long time. Just take what you need. Then slowly walk your feet towards your hands and find dangling or standing forward fold. So your feet are hip width distance apart. And then you just let your whole upper body dangle here. Hands can find the mat or blocks, or they can just dangle in space. And your head is also dangling, so chin is not out, right? It's tucked. And then you breathe here. And if for some reason this is not good for you, if you have low blood pressure issues, you can also come forearms to thighs here. This is kind of like a halfway situation or just a seated forward fold. We're gonna hang out here for a few minutes only, okay? So just take what you need here. You can shake your head, yes, no. And feel that stretch in the back of your legs, right? And also throughout your whole back body, really. Your hamstrings, your calves. Feel the compression of your stomach, your digestive organs on your thighs. And remember, you can keep a sweet bend here. Or if it feels appropriate, you can start to extend and straighten your legs. Breathe. Find the weight of your body on your heels, right? Feel it there. I am. I am here. Few more breaths here. All right. Now, be very mindful. We're going to start coming up very, very slowly. Okay. So, vertebrae by vertebrae. You're going to start ragdolling up, sort of like a zombie, very slowly towards standing. The last thing to come up is your head. Okay. Very, very slowly. And once you're up, find the top of your mat here and find your mountain pose. So for mountain, feet are hip width distance, hands are by our sides, and the palms are facing forward, chest is open. And we're breathing here, standing here. Feel this, feel the ground beneath you, just for a moment. How do you feel? What stories are coming up? On the next inhale, float arms towards the sky. And then clasp your hands. So we're going to clasp fingers and leave the index and the thumb out. And then side bend towards the right side. Chandrasana, half moon. Just for a moment, you're just moving the spine a bit. Check in with your hips, make sure that they're squared and facing forward. Inhale back to center. Exhale, side bend towards the left. Inhale back to center. Release your arms back to Tadasana, mountain. And if you were at the top of your mat, I mean, you can stay there or you can find the middle of your mat here. Inhale, float arms up again. Exhale, and now we're gonna forward fold again, sort of to that ragdoll. And we're gonna find yoga squat. So prepare your feet for this. You might need to point your toes a little bit outward and find your stance. And then very slowly drop your hips to sit on a squat. Okay? You can have your bum floating, right? Like this. Or you can sit on a block or a couple of blocks. Cushions, bolsters, whatever. Find your support. And then make sure you're grounding through your feet. Chest is open. Bring your hands towards your heart center. And if it's available, you can press your elbows a bit towards your knees. Chin is slightly tucked, finding length on your neck here. And we breathe. This is a fantastic posture for digestion. It also opens the hips beautifully. And just think about it. We don't sit like this often, other than maybe if we squat and when we exercise or things like that, but like we don't. And every squat is going to look different, right? Some people can be here, some people can be here, some people can have lots of props. So you choose what feels supportive and what's true to you today. Again, if you find yourself telling a story like, oh, I shouldn't use props because props, I used to tell myself this story that props were clutches, the props were like not for the best yogi. And that was just, of course, a false story. Props are incredible tools to support yourself and to find length and to find the earth and to just, they're incredible. And there's nothing wrong with them, with using them. So that's the thing, is when you start noticing what the mind is saying, what the mind is telling you, and you start digging and seeing, well, where is that coming from, right? You can start to like kind of untangle the knots. Keep breathing here. Feel this in your body. Notice it where you feel it. And on the next few breaths, if you had any props under you, remove them, set them to the side. Plant your hands and start lifting your hips. And again, hands can be props or ground, but just like help yourself up. Lift your hips and come back to ragdoll. Just for a moment, we're just trying to counter stretch what we just did, right? You can move your hips and dangle here. Just do what feels good. And then find the top of your mat if you're not there already. Plant your hands and step back to downward facing dog. Remember, you can have a sweet bend on the knees. The heels do not have to touch. You're just drawing them towards the mat. Lifting hips up, melting chest towards the ground. Shoulders separated from your ears. Breathe here. Then on the next breath or two, just come down to tabletop. Come to your knees. And we're going to find the first dragon of today. So for that, you're going to bring the right foot in between your hands. And you can help it up if you need to, right? So just frame it in between your hands, and you can use blocks for this. If your hands do not touch, you can have blocks under in any of the heights. And then check in here, right? Try to find a good low lunge. If the knee is in pain, there's a couple of things you can do. You can kind of fold your mat to give yourself a little bit of cushion, or you can also grab a pillow and put it under your knee. So protect your knee and find your low lunge. And again, we're trying to find a stretch in the hips here, but see the difference between here and then just like dumping all my weight. Be very mindful of tucking your tailbone a little bit. Imagine there's this tail, right? This bushy tail, like a fox tail or a dog's tail, whatever, that comes out and around up towards your belly button. So there's a little bit of a lift here. There's a little bit of integrity. We're not just totally dumping our entire weight on our hips, right? But there is a stretch. Hands can be, again, blocks or the earth, or if it feels appropriate, they can come up to the thigh. Some people also like one hand here, so find what works for you. My knee is speaking to me, so I'm gonna put it on the mat. Remember the integrity of your pelvis, tucking that tailbone a little bit. Shining the collarbones forward. Separating the shoulders from the ears, okay? We're not here, we're here. And you can soften your elbows, right? So we're not in total tension here and engaging the muscles. Remember, we're in a yin posture, even though I know it can be challenging, we're trying to soften anywhere we can, right? Anywhere we can. So soften your fingers, your toes. See where you're gripping. See where you're holding and soften. Keep breathing. Feel the stretch. I am here. I am here. Okay. In the next breath, very careful here. If you have blocks, you can bring them with you. We're going to start bringing our hips back and extending this front leg. And then folding forward in this front leg. Checking in with the hips, right? So make sure you're bringing the right hip down and both hips back in alignment, right? The idea here is to feel a stretch in the back of the leg. And you can stay here or you can fold forward. The back toes can be tucked or untucked, you choose. And there's a tendency of like shifting towards the left side. So make sure your hips are squared, facing forward. This is half splits or bowing dragon. And this is a great counter for what we just did. I'm just gonna be here for about a minute or so. So breathe. Remember, you can have hands on blocks or forearms on blocks, you choose. Breathing here. This is the dragon fire I was talking about. So it is intense, but we're trying to be in a passive position, right? We're not forcing ourselves here. We're not engaging the legs. We're trying to let the body be in stillness in these postures, in these dragon postures, right? These lunges are called dragons in yin. All right. On the next breath, we come back to that low lunge. Remove any props if you had any. Plant the hands and come back to hands and knees or tabletop. Just move here, wiggle. If you need a downward facing dog to kind of rinse that, you're welcome to tuck the toes and come back up. And walk the dog here. Find what works for you. And eventually we're going to come back to tabletop. And we're going to do the other side. So bring your left foot in between your hands for a low lunge. And again, find the distance, right? A distance that keeps some integrity. You don't, not dumping. You have some integrity. Imagine that bushy tail coming in and around. I love that cue. I just learned that cue from one of my mentors, and I think it's fantastic. Like, I imagine I'm just like, I don't know, a cat or a dog, and I have this long tail, and it just comes like whoop, kind of zips up, right? So plant your hands, or again, bring the earth to you. Plant your hands on blocks. Find that place, and then check in with the knee. Remember, fold your mat or place a cushion if you need to. Breathe here. Soft bend on the elbows, soften hands and fingers. Or if it feels good, you can always bring your hands towards your thigh. That gives you a little bit more of a back bend situation. So check in. Breathe. I am. I am here. You are here. You are here breathing. You're here moving. You're here showing up. And just remember that the practice is not just what you do when you take a class, when you go on the mat. I used to have, speaking of false perceptions and stories that I used to tell myself, I used to think that yoga or doing yoga was just going to a class and doing the asanas, doing the postures. And the more and more I just have learned and gotten to this world and into the practice, it's just like, it's unfolding all these layers, right? Yoga is so much more than just the asana, than just doing the posture or just unrolling the mat. Sure, that's a great part of it, but there's also the breath. There's also meditation. There's also the kindness you give to people outside of the mat. There's also finding focus, contentment, doing no harm. Like, there's so many things. And if you study yoga, if you know yoga, you know there's 8 limbs and there's so many layers, right? But just know that yoga is much more than what you're doing here right now. And you can take this awareness and you can take this kindness to yourself, because it all starts with you, and bring it to others. All right. In the next breath, we're going to go to that half split or bowing dragon. So very mindful. If you have props under you, they can come with you. Bring your hips back and extend that front leg. You can find your heel there and flex your foot if that feels nice. And then fold forward towards that leg. Okay? Check in with the hips. There's a tendency to go to one side. So make sure that you have your hips squared, facing forward, and that both hips are leveled. Breathe. Feel the counter stretching the hamstring. Feel that fire, even in yin. Feel the yang and the yin. Beautiful. Come back up to your baby dragon or low lunge. Remove the props. And come back to your tabletop. And again, any cat-cows, any movement, any hips, hip circles, rolls, anything you need here. Take it. If your mat was folded, you can bring it back to how it was. And then tuck your toes and make sure that all the toes are coming to the party, even pinky toe. And we're gonna find toe stretch. So for toe stretch, there's a couple of options, and actually there's like a spectrum. So just being here, sort of in tabletop with your toes tucked, you're already stretching your toes. But then you can start walking your hands towards you and find that edge, right? Maybe it's here. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's all the way up. Check in, make sure all the toes are in. Maybe you decide to put a prop in between your legs to give you some support and help with intensity. So wherever the toe stretch is, make sure that you're not overdoing it, right? You're feeling the stretch in your toes. And if you're sitting upright, try to align your spine and breathe. Yeah. So make sure that all the toes are in, and breathe here. We're just going to be here for a bit. And if you need to take a break, take a break. Like, remember, you're not a prisoner here. No one's forcing you to do anything. This is your practice. You make it what it is best for you. If you're sitting upright, here's an opportunity to use your arms. So inhale and give yourself a hug. Beautiful. Exhale, release. Inhale, switch arms, and give yourself a hug again. Only a few more breaths. Release. Couple more breaths here, feeling that stretch in your toes if you're still with me. If you're not, that's okay. And very slowly start walking your hands down, release the toes, and then give the toes a little pat. So pat, 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 pat. Yeah, kind of release the stretch, patting, patting, patting the feet. Good. If you had a prop, just put it towards the side. You might need it, but I just want you to check in and see if you do need it for the next one. So stand on your knees, bring them together, and then sit on your knees if that feels okay. If it doesn't feel okay, on your knees, on your heels, sorry, sit on your heels. If that's too much for your knees, you can place a cushion in between. We're just gonna do a bit of an ankle stretch to counter what we just did as well. So once you're here, whether with a prop or not, see if you can find the ground behind you. If not, that's okay. You can just place your hands on your waist and just lean forward, backward, I'm sorry, to stretch your, oh, they just cracked. Stretch your ankles a bit. So this prop is really high for me right now, so I'm just gonna remove it, see the difference. So I'm here and I'm just leaning back and stretching. Your knees don't have to go up all the way, they can stay here, and this is still a stretch. And if you don't reach the back, that's okay. Even here, just sitting is stretching my ankles, right? So you find what works for you. Everybody's different. For me, this prop was too high. So without it feels better. So this is stretching my ankles. And it's even giving me a bit of a back bend here. And I can also open up my chest. Breathe. Again, softening elbows if you're here. Trying to soften anywhere where you feel like you're gripping or holding. Beautiful. Come back up. And find a child's pose. So widen your legs, your knees pointing towards the edges of your mat, big toes together. Hands and arms extend above your head, and then you drop your forehead. Forehead to the ground, or if it doesn't reach the ground, find a block. But the forehead has to touch something here. Breathe here. Breathe in this little cocoon. You can move the forehead from side to side to give yourself a massage. All right. Come back up very slowly. Now, take a sip of water if you need to, but we're gonna start coming towards our backs. Make sure that you have a prop with you, a block or a cushion. And once you're in your back, On your back, you're gonna bring your knees towards your chest and you're gonna hug him a bit here. Maybe you can rock from side to side. And now we're gonna get ready to go into a supported little bridge. So for that, you'll need a prop, whether that's a block or a cushion, a bolster. You're gonna need something to place under your sacrum. So first, bend your knees, plant your feet. Make sure that they are planted hip width distance apart, okay? And that your toes are pointing forward. Arms can be by your side. And then try to bring your shoulder blades kind of together, like closer together here. You're going to inhale and lift your pelvis up. And this is where you place the prop underneath. So if you have a block, I suggest you place it on this is like baby bear, mama bear, papa bear. I would suggest the mama bear, I'm sorry, the baby bear side. So the lowest side. And place it under your sacrum, okay? That means it's not gonna go under your lower spine. So if it feels uncomfortable and like it's crushing your lower spine, it probably needs to be lower. It's gonna go kind of where you would put a belt on, okay? It's that flat part that's below the lower spine. It's called your sacrum, okay? If you don't have a block, you can just place a bolster or a cushion, okay? Place something. You don't need to hold this in the air, okay? Place something underneath. And then hands can be, again, by your side, your belly. Some people like floating them all the way overhead. So check in. Feel the ground behind your skull. So these are your points of contact, right? Like the back of your skull, your shoulder blades, your arms, your sacrum that's on that block or cushion, your feet. And this is an inversion, really, right? A gentle one, but an inversion. Breathe here. If you need to increase sensation or go to that next stopping point, you can always extend your legs. That's going to create more sensation in your back body. But you don't have to. And remember, when I give options, I'm not trying to tell you that one is more than the other or deeper than the other, therefore it's better. We have a tendency of wanting to go deeper, faster, and that's not the case, right? So you do what feels good for you for that particular moment and that particular pose. And it's okay if you went too far and you need to come back. That's fine. But deeper is not better. Not necessarily. All right. If you had your legs extended, very slowly bring your feet back towards the ground, bending your knees. Lift your hips very slowly, remove the prop, bring your hips down, and then bring your knees towards your chest. And give yourself a hug here. And maybe rock from side to side. Beautiful. Give yourself any intuitive movement. If you need to float your legs, or if you need a happy baby, do whatever you need here. And then we'll get ready to do our recline twists. So place your right hand on your left knee and then bring both of your knees towards the right. Careful if you have any props next to you. The left shoulder is trying to ground, right? And the arm can be extended, it can be in cactus, it can be on your belly, wherever it needs to go. And then your head can be facing the sky or facing the left side for a deeper twist. If this twist doesn't serve you, remember you can find another version. Breathe. Check in. Very slowly come back to center. Place your left hand on your right knee and bring both of your knees towards the left for a twist. Again, right arm can be extended, cactus, or wherever you want to place it, and your head can be towards the sky or towards the right side. Take it all in. Everything you did today. And not just what you did, but the awareness you brought today. It's less about doing and more about being, right? That's how we find ease. But it's very challenging because we're all focused on doing, going. But what happens when we pause and we listen and we look inward? What happens when we wipe the mirror? Very slowly come back to center. Give yourself one last hug here. And then get ready for Shavasana. So take space, extend your legs towards back the end of your mat. Arms by your side, also extended. You can get pillows, you can get blankets. You can get very cozy, as cozy as you need. And then you soften your gaze or close your eyes. Let it all go. Finding deep and utter relaxation. I'll read you a gentle reminder of Alex Elle. Sometimes the clarity you need is already within you. Letting go of what you cannot control is not a weakness, it's a strength. It's how you reclaim your power. Stop trying to please people, things, or situations beyond your grasp. Every detour has served you, even the painful ones. Reroutes have a way of shaping, blessing, and possibly even saving us from what is not in alignment. Let go of the idea that things should have unfolded differently or that people should be more like you. Everyone can meet you where you are. Everyone doesn't love or show up how you do, and that's okay. Trust the proof, embrace the pivot, loosen your hold on the expectations you have. Clinging too tightly to how you think or want things to be can steal your joy. Detach. The more you cling to what you think should be, the harder it becomes to accept what is. The best thing you can do for yourself is acknowledge what's in front of you, accept the truth, and adjust your expectations and behavior. This isn't about giving up or giving in. It's about letting go so you can move forward with clarity and peace. If you're still in Shavasana, very gently start waking up the body, waking up the fingers, the toes, coming back to this space. And you don't have to come to a seat. You can stay in Shavasana to close, or if it feels good, start laying on your side. And then help yourself find a comfortable seat. Remember that your stories are not facts. And as Alex Elle just reminded us, we can let go of those things that we try to cling to, attach to, or think they have to be a certain way. It takes time to unlearn, it takes time to release, but we can do it. And this practice is a beautiful way to start. All right, wherever you are in Shavasana or seated, take a deep breath through your nose. Exhale, let it all go. Inhale, bring hands to heart center. Exhale and bow to you. Namaste. Thank you so much for coming.